everybody. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. It's your friendly neighborhood Jerry Rasco here with you again, and it's time for an amazing Spider-Man art retrospective video. So looking forward to today. This one's a little bit different and should be pretty unique. So thank you all for checking out the videos. As I have mentioned previously, if you've been a member of the channel or if you've subscribed to the series here, or just to my YouTube channel in general, you know that I definitely appreciate all of the following, all the fans, all the likes, the folks who are watching the videos. Thank you so much for continuing to come with me on this journey as we look at amazing Spider-Man comics throughout history. I do want to mention again that this series is something I'm doing every Monday at 8 a.m. Central Time. So they come out first thing in the morning. So if you've subscribed to the channel, don't forget to hit the notify button. And then that way you'll be notified when these new videos do hit, and you'll be able to check it out at your leisure. So today we have another amazing Spider-Man issue. We're up to issue number 16. So we're moving along pretty well. And this one is different in that we don't have a new rogue who is being introduced to the Marvel Universe. We don't have a returning villain as part of the Spider-Man lore. So we're seeing actually some characters that have had spotlights in other books and now merging into or coming into Spider-Man here for an issue and kind of helping to cement that Spider-Man does exist within that greater Marvel universe. We've seen, going all the way back to things like Amazing Spider-Man #1 and other issues where he's interacted a lot with the Fantastic Four. We've seen Doctor Doom, who of course is a Fantastic Four villain. But beyond the Fantastic Four, well, in the last issue we just saw, there was a guest appearance by the Hulk. So if you missed that one, we just did Amazing Spider-Man number 14. Sorry, 15 was Kraven the Hunter. 14 was the Green Goblin, which had the Hulk in it. So we've seen a few. This is another example of Spidey being part of the greater Marvel universe. So let's jump in here and look at this issue. Like I said, it's a little bit different than what we've seen before, but still pretty fun. So here we have Amazing Spider-Man number 16, and it's featuring Daredevil. So we have Daredevil, and then we have this villain over here called the Ringmaster. The Ringmaster is part of the Circus of Crime. So I did a little quick research. The Ringmaster first made his appearance in Captain America and then in the Hulk. And so I think this version of the Ringmaster was first showed up in the Incredible Hulk. But you notice we've gone through these themes of villains. What do we have here? We have another green and purple villain. So if you have not seen my earlier videos, this is one of the things I've been talking about a lot as we've gone through these Spider-Man issues, and that is the psychology of the color. You notice your heroes here, even though they're fighting, we have two heroes. We have Daredevil and we have Spider-Man. And even though the color has sort of faded in this scan, we know that Daredevil's costume is yellow and red, two primary colors. Spider-Man's costume is red and blue, two other primary colors. These are subtle psychological ways that we identify things like heroes versus villains. Villains are in secondary colors, the colors that are mixed by mixing two of your primary colors together. So green is blue and yellow, purple is red and blue. And when you put a character in those colors, immediately we understand that this is the villain. So this is something that continues on through today. I mean, even with computer coloring where we can have millions of colors, we still default sometimes to the storytelling, again, psychology that characters that are in greens, oranges, purples, stuff like that tend to be less heroic and more villainous. There are always exceptions, but in this case, it really plays out very well here on the cover. This is a great cover. It's pretty cool. I like you have two characters that are sort of similar in the way that they move around and their fighting styles. Daredevil is very acrobatic. Spider-Man, of course, is exceptionally acrobatic, even more so. And here they are battling a circus. And so we're going to see a lot of acrobatics, and that's here on the cover. I also, I've mentioned in the past where we've used dark colors to pop the trade dress. And the trade dress is that amazing Spider-Man on the top. Here we've gone with a light color, a light gray, possibly it was white at one point, or again, even gray, to pop that red amazing Spider-Man and to make Daredevil and Spidey really pop out as well. So great way of selling a cover, selling the action, selling the figures by using color to do it. So good cover. And then we go ahead and we open up on page 1 and we're back to another montage. So here we have this is an image that's taken from the story of what's inside and just a scene. So here's Spidey and he's fighting this entire circus of crime. So the circus is made up of people that you would assume are traditional circus performers. There's a strongman, there's the human cannonball, there's the trapeze brothers, but each of them have additional skill set. Even the clown, above and beyond what you would think of as your regular just circus performers, and they use them to rob the people at the circus. So this is how, again, a montage. Do we need this? Not necessarily. We know that he's going to fight the ringmaster. It's part of it. The scene here is a circus. We could have just gotten into the story, but this is, we've gone back and forth on this in earlier issues. Again, if you've followed along, you would recognize this concept of the page 1 montage splash page. I will step back for a second and preface this with and remind everybody this is a scanned PDF copy that Marvel put out in 2004. So at the time, this book was about 40 years old. It's now close to 60 years old. And so what we're seeing is actually a very well kept cover for 60 years old. No tears, some minor wearing, but for that kind of age, no problem. The paper's yellowing a little bit, but you'll also see some of these original ads that were in the book. So this is very much like the experience that a reader would have when they bought this book from the newsstand. So pretty cool stuff. Let's get into it. Your usual storytelling stuff. One of the things we do have here in the previous issue, we heard the first mention of their next door neighbor, Mrs. Watson, and that she has a niece, and Mrs. Watson and Aunt May are trying to get the two of them together. They're trying to play matchmaker and get the two of them to go out on a date, and Peter does not want to. If you've been following along on the story so far, Peter, not only does he sort of have a girlfriend, which he says here, like, I think he says, I've got a girlfriend, which is Betty Brant. She is the J. Jonah Jameson's secretary at the Daily Bugle. But then there's also one of his classmates, Liz Allen, who's a young blonde lady who has started to show some interest in Peter. So he's got a lot on his social agenda, or his social plate, if you will. But Aunt May is not going to give up. And here's the thing. This is the first time, not only is she mentioned as Mrs. Watson's niece, but the name Mary Jane is mentioned. So this is our first mention of Mary Jane Watson, which if you know anything about Spider-Man, you know that's a big deal. So we are on our way. We're on the road to meeting Mary Jane before too long. There's a criminal, or there's some criminals, and they run into this guy who turns out to be blind, but Spidey is here to save the day. And I mentioned this a couple times in the some of our previous episodes. Big action, big panel. I like seeing that. Too often in some of these older comics, we get caught up in this grid where all the action is happening in this little panel, and that panel might only was drawn at maybe 3 inches by 5 inches in terms of the real estate, the actual page, and then shrunk down to be comic book size. So you can lose some of the detail, you lose some of that action and energy. But here we've opened it up here on page 3 with Spidey flipping through as he does and taking out these criminals. Couple of things else I wanted to note. This one here where Spidey is on the building and his spider sense warns him that there's something going on. It's a nice angle, right? He could have had him just sitting on a building straight up and down, but the building is turned, and we refer to that as a Dutch angle. It's something that's used throughout TV, movie history, comic books as well. Very famously used in the Batman TV show from the 60s, where when the villains would come on, they would turn it. And it's just a way to emphasize a point of action or something going on. And here it's used because if you turned it straight up and down and Spidey's stuck to the ceiling, it becomes very static. He's just sort of like he landed there and sort of stuck. But by turning it, it moves things forward and it makes it feel like he's launching himself off of that building. So it's a very subtle thing to do, but it really does help sell what we're trying to accomplish here, is that he's been hanging out and he sees something and he's ready to jump into action. So here we go. And then again, we have more multi-panels, not quite the grid because everything doesn't line up perfectly, and that's okay. But definitely still small grid form. And we get an introduction to Daredevil. So, people don't know, the writer Stan Lee doesn't know, and the publisher doesn't know. Are the people who have bought Daredevil buying this? Have Spider-Man readers? Do they know who Daredevil is? So we've got to introduce the character a little bit. And here we see Daredevil's original classic costume. So many of you may or may not know Daredevil from things like the Netflix and now Disney Plus television shows, where you've seen him in an all black outfit, and then eventually he gets to his red Daredevil costume that we all know. But this is the original design of Daredevil, and even though they've used black here, really the centerpiece is supposed to kind of be red. Everybody, when we talk about Daredevil's costume, people will refer to this as the yellow and red costume. But the thing I really liked here was this panel down here in the corner of him swinging. It's a really neat movement. It's a unique way to put the body, where the torso is twisting one way, grabbing the cable there, while his cane is hooked on this other protrusion from the building. But then the legs swinging up and around. There's a lot of movement. There's a lot of energy in that, even though it's a very small, simple form. It's much better than like the one where he's landing here, or even this one where he's sort of moving kind of from connection to connection, almost like from on the playground. We used to call them monkey bars. I don't know if they still call them monkey bars, but where you could go from one to one and move across. That's sort of what he's doing here. But this one where he's swinging is a much more interesting, exciting panel, and a lot of really good movement. I like it. Other thing to note, as I mentioned before, colors. We're talking about a time when there was a very limited palette that you could use for colors. Reds, oranges, there were some blues, but if you notice, pretty much all the blues are sort of this cyan, bright blue. We don't see a lot of like midnight blue, or sometimes a little bit lighter blue, but this is a very common color. Now, as a background, in today's world, so many people would just color this wall gray. It's gray brick, or it's gray stone, or it's something like that, which is perfectly fine. But by doing it as a blue piece, it really helps that red and yellow pop out, which is a really nice choice, just in terms of the coloring here. I like having him silhouetted against that blue, as opposed to some other color. Certainly, you wouldn't want to use a more realistic red brick. Heaven forbid that happens. And we do see that in a lot of modern comics too. It's easy to get realistic stuff. People could take, you could take a real photograph of real sort of reddish bricks and pick those colors off it using Photoshop and color this to make it look exactly like a real brick wall. And this character who's all reds and yellows is going to get lost against, a background that's made of reds and tans and oranges and stuff like that. So even though we don't see a lot of blue brick walls, it works great. I really like it. So back over here, we have another one where we've introduced the circus. And again, we've broken up the multi-panel grid with a nice wide shot, which helps us as well indicate we've changed scenes. When things are together, boom, 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 in an order very quickly, sometimes it's hard to differentiate if your next panel is exactly the same size and shape that we've moved to a different location. And so here, by opening it up and seeing the big top around us, we get to see all the characters in play, and we get to realize that we've changed scenes. So I do like that quite a bit. Now, I don't know off the top of my head who actually created the design for the Ringmaster. It says here, as he was in Hulk, as I mentioned. That's interesting. From the Hulk magazine, now discontinued, issue number 3. So very interesting that was, I guess, canceled. Obviously it was brought back, but that's pretty interesting stuff. Or maybe it's referring to it's not referring to the comic. Maybe there was an actual Hulk magazine. I'd have to go back and do some history digging for you. If somebody knows, leave in the comments. Let me know if you know and have any information on what the difference was between the Hulk, if there was the Hulk magazine versus the Incredible Hulk, the comic. Either way, we have the Ringmaster. It's a pretty cool design. It's got the top hat with the spiral there. He uses that to hypnotize people. The stars on the jacket, and then sort of this weird, mustache at the corners of his mouth. He is very again, this is a reference that not everybody may get. Snidely Whiplash, from old time cartoons, was a evil villain, and you knew he was an evil villain because he could take his long mustache and twirl it in his little fingers while he laughed. So he has that sort of very classic evil doer look to him. So we know that he's a bad guy, not just by the colors. So they're going to try to get Spider-Man because Spider-Man will draw a big crowd, and then they can rob the more people, right? That's their idea. And so Spidey shows up. And then I liked this panel as well here. So we've gotten to the circus, and of course everybody's showing up, right? So Matt Murdock, who is Daredevil, that's his real name, is Matt Murdock, in case you don't know. He has shown up with his colleagues, his friends, and Spidey shows up. But this panel down here, I like what's happening. One is, now the Ringmaster is talking to the Circus of Crime members, but the eyes are sort of looking at us, the reader, in a way too. It's not quite like he could have turned the head further to be talking to these people, but it's almost like he's looking at us, and the arms are gesturing us into the panel, into the circus and what's happening. And then where you have the stands, these angles also visually pull us in to what's happening in the center. So that's really nice storytelling. It's nice use of the design of the page or the composition of the whole page to pull the reader's eye into what's happening over here, which is this circus performance, but just to pull you into the story even more. So I really, really like that and wanted to call that out. That is an excellent, excellent piece of storytelling there. So that is really good. So we'll zoom back out, and Spidey's going to make a big surprise appearance. Here he is. Hooray. And he's doing stuff that only Spidey can do, right? So he's flipping around and spinning and jumping and leaping and sticking to stuff and doing things that any other circus acrobat can't do. And again, big action is big panel. So great job of doing that. Now, you notice there's weird little like numbers. So like you're supposed to sort of follow like, I guess it's supposed to tell you the direction of what he does, but I was like, "Oh my god, this is so." Again, I'll drop a reference that a lot of younger people won't know. It's super family circus from the Sunday morning comics in the newspaper. Like, so he's hand walking or somersaulting on the tightrope, then he jumps down to the trapeze bar, then he comes over to this guide wire, then he jumps and swings around the pole, then he grabs onto this wire which has flags on it, and then through this trapeze bar. But we could figure that out, or even if we can't, it doesn't matter. We know he's jumping around, it's enough. The numbering seems extremely weird to me. I don't care for it. It definitely takes us out of the idea that this is happening and that we're seeing it versus we're reading it. So again, just trying to maintain this illusion of you're looking at something that's happening versus you're looking at drawings of something that's happening or happened. So not my favorite. Let's see here. Yep. And then the ringmaster is going to hypnotize poor Spidey and the crowd, and now they go to rob everybody. And my assumption is, I don't remember. I didn't read through the comic earlier. I was looking at it again. The focus here is about the art, but my guess is that they're going to blame the crime on Spider-Man. But we'll see. So, but of course, Daredevil can't be hypnotized because he is blind, and so he is able to go change into his Daredevil costume, and he's going to fight. At first the ringmaster, but instead now the ringmaster has Spider-Man under his control, so Daredevil is going to have to fight Spider-Man. So okay, this is where we're going to see some jumping and leaping, and this is sort of what we saw on the cover. Daredevil swinging on the trapeze and fighting Spider-Man. But Daredevil, his powers are about his senses. He's not super strong. He's not super, physically super the way Spider-Man is. Spider-Man's super strength is definitely going to cause him a problem. So Daredevil has to avoid him. So he starts climbing up this the big pole in the middle of the tent. And I did like this. This is great perspective. So he's done it in a way where we're looking from the top down. You could do it from the bottom looking up to emphasize the height of something. But I like it this way because Daredevil is such a big figure as he's climbing, because he's got the lead on Spidey, and then you have the ringmaster so far below. So it's not only is it a nice angle in terms of the perspective coming up towards us, the reader, but also, again, angling it to make it a little more interesting. Could be straight up and down. Angling makes it a more interesting composition, but also uses the diagonal of the border of the panel, which is going to be longer than either of the sides if it's a square. So utilizing the space to its best advantage. So we've got, again, the fight continues. And again, lots of grid panel composition to make sure that you understand this is all happening extremely fast. Fast. Moment after moment. And here, Daredevil finally gets the hat away from the ringmaster. And then I like this where Spidey's hands are reaching out. So he's going to use this to release Spidey from the trance. And so it's like we're Spidey. He's pointing it right at us and using Spidey's hands, that sort of first person view of Spidey reaching out to him. I thought that's a nice framing device and looks pretty good. And it's a nice change of the angle. And it works great. And so now the two of them are going to now not fight. We're going to work together. He's figured out what's going on. And here we have, again, great big panel. Really like that. I like the pointing that the ringmaster is doing in his fist. The foreshortening on that arm, talked about foreshortening a lot. It's one of the harder things to do in comics, is to draw a three-dimensional object coming out towards the viewer on a two-dimensional plane and make it look right. So it's about overlapping the shapes on top of each other, which makes it look shorter. Hence the term foreshortening. The foreground is shortening the item. In this case, it's the arm, and it's done very, very well. And then you have the rest of the circus coming to fight these guys off. Again, more panels of action, bouncing around. Nothing, again, super crazy or really super exciting that I saw from an art perspective where I would go, ooh, let's look at this or that in these next couple of panels or pages. Again, nice thing here, you've got, we know that there are these posts, that go up to help support the tent, and then the trapeze hangs off of those and stuff. And here we've, Steve Ditko's put one in the foreground so that you have something close to the reader. Then you also have Daredevil in the middle, and then you have one in the background, so it creates that depth. So we know that this net is not just a flat sheet coming down, it has three-dimensional depth to it. So that's very nice. And then here eventually Daredevil realizes, like, Spidey's got this handled easy, and he kind of ducks back so that he can still maintain the illusion that he is Matt Murdock, he is not Daredevil, and that he's been hypnotized like everybody else. So Spidey's fighting off these guys. Again, I noted here, just again, nice big panels in the next few pages. Big action, big panel. In today's modern comics, these might be half a page, 3/4 of a page, things like that. And then you might put some of this other stuff around, smaller stuff around it, or you might zoom in on particular pages or particular panels, as opposed to trying to show the whole action in one of these small panels. But I like the big ones. I like the panels that show a lot of action going on. So these guys are throwing weights at him. He's got this giant heavy barbell that to him is not heavy, but these other guys can barely hold it. And he takes care of them. Interesting, he's doing a handstand on the trapeze bar there while the other guys are coming. And then I like this. So he set it up where there's 3 of them, and this guy has, I guess it's like a mace. It's like a some sort of a handle with a weight on the end, and he's hanging by his feet and swinging it, and then coming through and smashing the trapeze bar that Spidey's on, and so that his body goes limp as his motion continues to take him forward. And then this is a very small thing, but it's, again, really good storytelling. I've talked about this with Steve Ditko before. One of the things that he does so well is this, what I call continuity of body position. So Spidey is swinging on this trapeze. This guy breaks it. So Spidey's body is moving forward. We can tell the way that he is moving. He's in front of the trapeze bar, the way his body is bent and his arms and legs are sort of trailing behind him to a degree. So we know that he's moving forward, but he's already tucking his head because he's going to somersault. We don't have to show it, but he lands on the guy that just smashed the trapeze bar, kind of butt first, landing on his back. But he's done it in such a way, he set it up with this body position, this body control as he's rolling through, so that when he lands forward, it makes sense. If his feet were in a different position, or his head wasn't curled under in that top panel and he's looking up, then he would have had to take all that momentum and then swing his legs forward, which wouldn't make sense. So here he's setting up the somersault that we don't see and we don't need to see. We understand that that's how his body could get from point A, I'm pointing at the screen, but from point A to point B. Terrific stuff, and something that Steve Ditko is certainly a master at. And little details here, like he jumps over to this guy, grabs the trapeze wires, And you notice in the next panel, as he's hanging down, he's Spider-Man. He could just be sticking to the cable, but instead he's wrapped his feet around it so that he's hooked them the way that you would if you were an acrobat. Super cool, small detail, but nice storytelling. It, if you've ever seen a circus or an acrobat hanging from a rope or something like that, you know that that's what they do, right? You lock your leg around it like that, or your arm, and you can hang upside down, from that rope that way. And Spidey's done that. He doesn't have to draw it that way. He's Spider-Man. He could just hook a leg, but he's gone that extra step. Very, very nice. The human cannonball is coming after him now, which gets a little silly. He webs him and kind of rides him around and steers him back towards the other guys. And then you have a nice collision where the human cannonball takes out everybody for Spidey. And then here the ringmaster gets his hat back and he's going to hypnotize Spidey again. But of course, the beauty is Spidey doesn't have to use his eyes. So he's not quite Daredevil level, but he can use his spider sense to sense where the danger is, and his eyes are opaque. And he mentions that he has his eyes closed behind his opaque eyelids. So if you remember, if you saw the video that I did with the first appearance of Mysterio, Mysterio talks about, he poses as Spider-Man, and he commits crimes as Spider-Man at one point. And he talks about how he used a disguise, and he basically used the concept of a one-way mirror. I guess, no, it's a two-way mirror. The mirror you can see through and they can't see back through. That's what the lenses on his mask are. So it tells you they're almost sort of supposed to be like glass, like an opaque glass that he can see through that people can't see back. And so I thought it was a nice touch there. So he closes his eyes and knocks out the ringmaster and then uses the hat to free everybody. And everybody lives happily ever after. And it's, that's a pretty cut and dry Amazing Spider-Man issue. So, like I said, we're not seeing stuff that's groundbreaking at this time. Steve Ditko has clearly gotten into a very clean flow as far as the way that he's drawing Spider-Man. He's a little bulkier than when he started, which is fine. He's definitely drawing, in my opinion, a little faster. We're seeing a little bit less of some of the detail or some of the shading that we had seen in the early issues. But he's developing into this monthly in, monthly out, perfectly good, sometimes amazing storytelling concepts and how he's working stuff. And he's trying here and there to break up the norm of the panels, of the grids. He's trying to do some exciting things, and we're going to see that continue both from Steve, and then as we move on to other artists down the line of the series, we'll see how they took that concept of taking that structure of the grid storytelling and pushing it a little further, and then the next artist pushes it a little further and a little further. So that'll be really fun. I'm looking forward to going through those with you as well. The next issue that we're going to do, excuse me, is a special thing. I mentioned it, I think, in the last episode at the end, and that is a Spider-Man annual. So if you're not familiar what an annual is, it is a once a year. So comics come out basically 52 weeks a year. There are 52 issues of... No, I'm sorry. Comics come out 52 issues a year. Your favorite comic comes out once a month. But that means that sometimes there is an extra... It ends up being there's an extra week in there in terms of how the scheduling works. And so what the publishers would do, and sometimes still do, they're not as consistent with it as they used to be, is they would publish an annual. And an annual is usually a much oversized book. Sometimes it reprints old stuff. Sometimes it has extras in the back. Sometimes it has a new story that doesn't have anything to do with the current continuity. It might just be, a standalone story for something. But the annual is just a one-off event that happens once a year. And so what we're going to see is the first Spider-Man annual. and we'll take a look at that. And that one's going to be a big one because it is a big oversized book. It has a lot more pages and a lot more stuff in it, so that'll be a long video. I'm looking forward to going through that with you as well. So thank you all for checking this out. As always, like I say, leave comments, thumbs up, the like button. Let me know what you think. Subscribe to the channel, and I will see you next week for more Amazing Spider-Man art retrospective video time. Thanks so much, everybody.